The throne world of Valira burned in silence. From orbit, the planet still looked magnificent. Golden oceans reflecting the glow of 3 moons, silver cities connected by rivers of light. But anyone standing on its surface could smell the war. Smoke. Blood. Fear. Princess Lyri stood at the edge of the shattered balcony, while distant anti-orbital cannons thundered against the night sky. Below her, thousands of civilians flooded toward evacuation gates as black enemy carriers descended through the clouds like iron predators. "The Council has answered your request," said General Varos quietly. Lyri turned sharply. "Already?" The old reptilian commander nodded once. "A sword master from Earth." At that, the royal court erupted in disbelief. "A human? They sent a human? They are barely spacefaring." Lyri ignored the whispers. Humanity was young by galactic standards, fragile, short-lived, chaotic creatures from a polluted blue world near the fringe systems. Most species considered them useful mechanics at best. Mercenaries when desperate. Not legends. Not sword masters. Lyri's silver eyes narrowed. "Where is he?" General Varos hesitated. "That," he admitted carefully, "is the problem." The docking bay doors groaned open. The human walked in slowly. No armor. No glowing energy blade. No entourage. Just an old man wearing a dark coat, carrying a weathered metal case over one shoulder. He had gray hair tied behind his head, tired eyes, and the posture of someone whose body had survived too many winters. The room fell completely silent. "That," one noble muttered, horrified, "is the sword master?" The human looked around once. "Which one of you is the princess?" Lyri stepped forward cautiously. "I am." He studied her for a moment. "You look too young to be losing a war." The insult hit the court like an explosion. Guards immediately raised plasma rifles. But Lyri lifted a hand. "You are Master Elias Vane?" "Was," the old man corrected. "Retired 20 years ago." Varos growled. "Then why come?" Elias shrugged. "Because your message said the galaxy was ending." He looked around the ruined palace. "Seems accurate." One of the nobles snapped. "You insolent primitive." Elias moved. No one saw the motion clearly. 1 second he stood near the entrance. The next, the noble's ceremonial blade was in Elias's hand, pressed against the noble's throat. The room froze. Even the guards forgot to breathe. Elias sighed and handed the weapon back. "Too slow," he said. "All of you." Varos stared at him with reptilian disbelief. Lyri felt something colder. Hope. Far above the palace, warning sirens suddenly screamed. An officer burst into the chamber. Enemy breach ships incoming. The holographic map ignited red. The Drathri swarm had arrived. The monsters of the outer dark. Entire systems had vanished before them. Civilizations older than stars reduced to bones and ash. Their soldiers were not born. They were grown, engineered only to kill. And now they were here. The palace trembled violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. Elias calmly opened the metal case. Inside rested a sword. Not futuristic. Not elegant. Simple black steel wrapped in worn leather. Several nobles laughed openly. A metal blade? Against plasma weapons? Against biomechanical horrors? Elias ignored them and slowly drew the sword free. The sound silenced the room instantly. Not because it was loud, because every instinct in every living being suddenly screamed danger. Elias looked at Lyri. "You asked for a sword master, princess." Outside, explosions turned the night sky white. The old man rested the blade over his shoulder. "You should have asked what humans use swords for." Then the palace gates exploded inward. And the monsters came. The Drathri entered like nightmares given flesh. 8 feet tall. Black exoskeleton armor fused directly into living muscle. Their faces were hidden behind pale skull-like masks, glowing red through the eye slits. Each carried plasma cleavers capable of cutting armored vehicles in half. Royal guards opened fire instantly. Blue plasma rounds tore through the corridor. The Drathri kept advancing. One guard vanished in a spray of blood as a cleaver split him from shoulder to hip. Another screamed as mechanical claws pierced his chest. The palace collapsed into chaos. Nobles fled. Servants cried out. General Varos roared orders while defensive drones swarmed overhead. And through all of it, Elias Vane walked forward. Slowly. Calmly. The oldest man in the room moving toward the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. Princess Lyri couldn't understand it. He wasn't armored. Wasn't enhanced. Wasn't afraid. The nearest Drathri charged him with terrifying speed. Elias stepped sideways. One motion. Clean. Precise. The black blade whispered through the air. The creature's head separated from its body before anyone realized the strike had happened. Silence. Even the other Drathri paused. Elias exhaled softly. Still too slow. Then the hallway erupted. The swarm attacked together. Elias became death. Not flashy. Not theatrical. Efficient. Every movement wasted nothing. Every step positioned perfectly. Every strike fatal. A Drathri lunged from behind. Elias reversed his grip without looking and drove the blade through its throat. Another swung a plasma cleaver. He severed the arm, pivoted, and cut through the creature's spine. Blood sprayed across marble walls. Alien limbs crashed onto shattered floors. Princess Lyrie watched in horrified awe. Humans weren't supposed to move like that. The galaxy described humans as emotional, reckless, physically weak. But Elias fought like an ancient predator. Like violence itself had grown old inside him. The final Drathri hesitated. That alone shocked Varos more than anything. Drathri soldiers never hesitated. Elias pointed the blade toward it. "Tell your masters," he said quietly. "Earth remembers." The creature screamed and charged. Elias killed it instantly. Then the old man stood motionless among the bodies while alarms echoed across the ruined palace. No one spoke. Finally, Lyrie whispered, "What are you?" Elias cleaned the blade with a cloth from his pocket. "Human." Far above the city, orbital bombardments ignited the clouds. The real invasion had begun. Hours later, the surviving royal council gathered inside the underground war chamber. Holograms flickered across cracked walls showing catastrophic losses. 3 defense fleets destroyed. 7 cities overrun. Enemy hive ships entering atmosphere. General Varos spoke grimly. "At current rates, Valira falls within 48 hours. Panic spread immediately. We must evacuate. There is nowhere left. The swarm cannot be stopped." Elias sat quietly in the corner drinking tea someone had reluctantly brought him. Lyrie approached him carefully. "You knew them," she said. Elias didn't look up. "Long time ago. The Drathri fear humans." That finally made him smile. "No," he said softly. "They fear what humans become during losing wars." Lyrie frowned. "What does that mean?" The old man stared at the holographic battlefield. "When humanity first met the swarm, we lost 12 colonies in 6 months." His voice grew distant. "Billions dead. Entire fleets erased." Even Varos listened now. Elias continued. "So humanity adapted." The room dimmed as another bombardment shook the underground bunker. "We stopped fighting for victory," Elias said. "Started fighting for survival." His eyes lifted toward them. "And survival makes monsters of everyone." A terrible silence followed. Then emergency lights turned crimson. A transmission officer shouted in terror. Unknown signal entering all channels. The hologram shifted violently. A massive alien face appeared. Bone-white armor. Burning crimson eyes. The Drathri overmined. It spoke one sentence. "Send the human to us, and your world may die quickly." Every person in the room slowly turned toward Elias Vane. The old swordsman sighed. "Ah," he muttered. "They remember me." Rain hammered the ruined city like falling steel. Princess Lyrie stood atop the battlements beside Elias while evacuation ships launched into the burning sky. Entire districts below had already gone dark. Millions dead. And still the Drathri came. "Why do they fear you?" she finally asked. Elias remained silent for a long time. Then he answered, "Because I taught them." Lyrie stared. The old human rested both hands on the sword. 30 years ago, during the siege of Carthan Vale, the swarm captured my son." The words came quietly. Too quietly. They broadcast his execution to force Earth into surrender. Rain rolled down his weathered face. "We surrendered." Lyrie blinked in confusion. "You surrendered?" Elias nodded once. "For 6 hours." Then she saw it. Not sadness. Something worse. Memory. "When the surrender ships arrived," Elias said, "they carried fusion warheads hidden inside refugee vessels." Even the thunder seemed to pause. "We destroyed the entire Drathri command fleet." Lyrie whispered, horrified. "Refugee ships." "Yes." "You killed civilians?" Elias finally looked at her. "In war," he said coldly, "humans eventually stop asking what should be done." The princess felt genuine fear then. Not of the swarm. Of humanity. Elias continued quietly. "The galaxy thinks humans are weak because we smile. Because we negotiate. Because we build families and music and art. He looked toward the burning horizon. But evolution did not make us predators by accident. A deafening boom interrupted him. The northern wall exploded. Drathri drop pods slammed into the city in massive waves. General Varos shouted through comms. They've breached the inner districts. Screams erupted across military channels. Lyri drew her energy blade instinctively. Elias stood slowly, old bones cracking, tired eyes hardening. "Princess," he said softly, "today you learn the final lesson Earth taught the galaxy." The ground shook violently. Thousands of Drathri surged through the smoke below. Elias stepped forward alone. Then the human fleet arrived. Not elegant like Valyrian ships. Not enormous like Imperial dreadnoughts. Ugly. Scarred. Weaponized brutality forged in desperation. Ancient war cruisers dropped from hyperspace directly into atmosphere, engines burning like artificial suns. Human voices flooded every frequency. "This is Terran Response Fleet Blackwatch. Targets confirmed. For Earth." The sky became fire. Mass drivers thundered. Missile storms blacked out the heavens. Human ships rammed directly into enemy carriers rather than retreat. One cruiser split in half. And still fired until impact. Princess Lyri watched in stunned disbelief. The humans fought like a species that had survived extinction before. Because they had. Elias smiled faintly. "There they are," he murmured. Then he lifted his sword and walked directly toward the battlefield. The Drathri charged him by the hundreds. And the old man met them alone. The Battle of Valyra became legend before it was even over. Human marines descended through firestorms in iron drop coffins that smashed into streets at terminal velocity. They emerged firing ballistic weapons loud enough to shake buildings. Not energy rifles. Chemical-propelled metal. Primitive. Devastating. The Drathri adapted quickly to plasma. But bullets. Bullets shattered bone. Captain Mara Quinn led the first assault toward the Royal District. Her scarred face appeared across tactical screens as explosions illuminated her armor. "All units advance," she shouted. "Push them back." Beside her marched humans bleeding from wounds that would have killed most species. Yet they kept moving, kept fighting, kept refusing death. Princess Lyri fought beside them now. And for the first time, she understood why humanity terrified the galaxy. Not because they were strongest, because they endured. A Valyrian soldier lost an arm and collapsed screaming. A human medic shoved him behind cover, handed him a rifle with one hand, and said, "You can still shoot," then ran back into gunfire. Madness. Pure madness. And somehow, it worked. The Drathri advance slowed, then stalled, then broke. Meanwhile, at the center of the ruined capital, Elias Vane climbed the shattered staircase toward the Overmind's landing spire. Bodies covered the path behind him. Dozens. Hundreds. The old man bled from deep wounds now, his coat torn black with blood, but he never slowed. At the top waited the Overmind itself, 14 feet tall, wrapped in living armor. Its voice echoed inside his skull. "Human, you should have died long ago." Elias stopped 10 feet away. "So should you." The Overmind extended monstrous blade limbs. "Your species brings only destruction." Elias laughed weakly. "Correct." Then they attacked. The impact shattered the tower. The Overmind struck with terrifying speed, each blow capable of slicing tanks apart. Elias dodged barely. Too old. Too wounded. Yet still fighting. Steel screamed against alien bone. The tower collapsed around them while the war raged below. The Overmind drove a blade through Elias's side. The old man staggered. Blood spilled across the stones. "You cannot win." Elias coughed violently, then smiled. "That's the thing about humans." He activated the device hidden beneath his coat. The Overmind paused. A nuclear core. Ancient. Dirty. Human. Elias grinned through bloody teeth. "We stopped needing to win a long time ago." The Overmind finally understood. Its scream shook the sky. Far below, Princess Lyri looked upward just as blinding white light consumed the tower. Then, silence. The explosion split the clouds apart for hundreds of miles. Every Drathri across the battlefield froze instantly. Disconnected. Leaderless. Human fleets attacked without hesitation. The swarm collapsed within hours. But on the shattered remains of the tower, nothing remained of Elias Vane. Only the sword, burning quietly among the ashes. 3 months later, Valyra held its first sunrise without war. The cities still smoked. Entire oceans remained poisoned from orbital bombardments. Millions were dead. But the world lived. And across the galaxy, one truth spread like wildfire. Humanity had defeated the Drathri swarm. Again, Princess Lyri stood before the rebuilt royal court wearing black ceremonial armor instead of royal silk. Behind her hung the broken banner of the swarm beside the flag of Earth. The chamber was full. Alien ambassadors, military leaders, survivors, and humans, rough-looking men and women in scarred uniforms who stood awkwardly among ancient nobles. General Varos approached the throne slowly. "The council has voted unanimously," he announced. "Humanity is to be recognized as a protector civilization." The words carried enormous meaning. For centuries, humans had been dismissed as secondary beings. Barbarians, short-lived primitives. Now entire star nations begged for alliance treaties. Lyri looked toward the humans present. Captain Mara Quinn simply shrugged. "We're still charging you for ammunition," she said. Laughter spread through the chamber. Real laughter. The first in months. Then Lyri lifted something carefully onto the throne pedestal. A black steel sword. Elias Vane's blade. Recovered from the crater. Silence returned instantly. The princess spoke softly. He came when no one else would. Her silver eyes moved across the crowd. "We asked for a sword master." She touched the worn handle gently. "And Earth sent us a human old enough to refuse." Even the humans lowered their heads. Lyri continued. "The galaxy believed strength meant power, technology conquest." Her voice hardened. "But humanity taught us something else." Outside the palace windows, reconstruction ships crossed the morning sky. "Strength," she said, "is surviving long enough to remain kind." Captain Quinn looked away at that. Because humans understood the truth better than anyone. Kindness was difficult for predators. Especially tired ones. A small child suddenly entered the chamber, a Valyrian orphan carrying a crude drawing. The guards moved nervously, but Lyri waved them aside. The child approached the sword carefully. "Is it true?" she asked quietly. "The humans saved us all alone?" Lyri smiled sadly. "No." She looked toward the human standing silently at the back. He was simply the first one willing to stand. Far above Valyra, hundreds of human warships prepared to depart for the next crisis zone. Because the galaxy was still dangerous. Still cruel. Still burning. But now, whenever darkness rose somewhere among the stars, someone would whisper the same warning. "Be careful. The humans might come."